Oh, hey there. My name is Tim Murphy. Stop what you're doing right now and give me 10 seconds. I have something really important to share with you. Now, you're probably not happy with your job, and they probably aren't paying you the money that you deserve. Let me tell you about MercerCountyWorks.com. They're the #1 fastest growing job engine in New Jersey. And unlike Monster, Career Builder, and Glassdoor, Mercer County Works connects directly with employers to get your resume in front of decision makers. Okay, stop looking at me and go to MercerCountyWorks.com right now and upload your resume today.
And we are live. Welcome YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and my favorite, LinkedIn. Welcome to another episode of the Rise and Grind Show. We are here with you today with another episode of How to Get Hired, a look into the mind of a hiring manager. We got an awesome group of panelists today that are going to get all your questions answered so that you can get hired when you get in front of that hiring manager. But without further ado, I'm here with my main man live from Qatar. Please tell them who you are.
What's going on, everybody? Peace and major blessings to everybody today on the panel. Everyone who's looking at the show today, just want to say thank you for pulling up. So we're about to get into this show, all right? Because this is a very important topic, especially under these unprecedented times, all right? So without further ado, let's do what we came here to do. You dig? Let's go.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, listen, we have an awesome panel today. If you have questions, if you have questions for our panelists, please just drop them into the comment box. If you just want to give a shout out, please like, comment, subscribe and share. Hit that bell button down at the bottom. Hit that subscribe button down at the bottom. Share this on your Facebook. Share this on your LinkedIn. Share this. Share the YouTube link. Let other people see what's going on here so that they can find out how they can get hired right here in the future. And so let's go ahead and get right into it. I want to introduce our first panelist, Miss Pamela Ellsworth. Please tell them who you are.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Pamela Ellsworth, and I am an HR consultant. I handle small business HRBP needs, general HR consulting, mediation, interview prep, and much more. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, that's glad that you're here with us. Thank you. Our next panelist, Michael, please tell them who you are. Michael, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Kind of breaking up, but okay. Do you want me to go?
Yes, if you can
introduce me.
yourself.
So I'm Mike Shao. I've been in HR. I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you. You're breaking. You're breaking up a little bit. So what we'll do is we'll come back to you, Michael. All right.
Okay.
All right. Awesome. Silvio,
Sure.
Please tell our viewers who you are.
Hi, everyone. My name is Silvio Lamizere, and currently I am an HR director for a nonprofit organization known as Haitian American Caucus. I have several years of experience in the HR field, more so in the recruitment aspect and training and onboarding and some employee relations as well. I've been through the whole large spectrum of HR and also have my master's in IO psychology and concentration in HR management. And I'm here on the show to get it on and popping.
Awesome. Well, that was definitely a mouthful. Thank you for bringing your talents with us today. And so we also have another one of our panelists coming live from Rwanda, right? So he's not the only one staying up late tonight with us. Just we got Qatar definitely in the house as well. So Jean, please tell our viewers who you are.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Jean Dodier. As I have just said, I work with the University of Global Health Equity, which is an invest that it trains the next generation of global health leaders, especially to reach out all those underserved communities or those people who can't, afford, access to quality healthcare. So I would like to say I hold an MBA in international business with a major in human resources management, and I hold a good number of different professional qualifications. A professional in human resources international from the Human Resource Certification Institute based in Virginia, Washington, D.C. I'm also the same HR subject matter expert. What we do, we develop different tests, then we go or we move ahead to validating them. Then I would like to say that I'm happy to join this panel today. Thank you.
Awesome. Yes, thank you for being with us. Definitely appreciate it. Oh, yes. Michael, you ready to go?
Yeah, let's try it again. So hopefully you can hear me.
Yes.
Mike Shao, I'm an HR professional, 30-some years. I supported the telecommunications companies primarily, but also some nonprofits more recently. I've been an HR generalist, senior HR generalist, and some people management roles in HR. Currently, I'm doing some HR consulting for a public library, believe it or not. So there's a need all around. I hold an MBA degree as well as a bachelor's degree, and I am certified in both the highest levels of HR professional certification, the SPHR and the SHRM-SCP. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Thank you for being here with us. We definitely have some heavy hitters tonight that's going to drop a lot of knowledge. So Jay Tyler, let's go ahead and get right into the questions.
All right. So before I begin, just as a matter of transparency, if you see me looking up and away or somewhere like that, have another screen in back of me, okay? Because it does look like I'm looking up somewhere, right? But so let's get into the first question. And I want to start off with the hiring managers themselves. So if you can all answer this question, don't have to go one at a time, just jump right in. So what are the top qualities of a good hiring manager? Let's start off with that first. So tell me about a good hiring manager. What qualities do they bring to the table?
I would first off say effective communication. That is number one in regards to a hiring manager. If they're not effectively communicating what they need from me, it's going to be hard for me to do my job. So I need an effective communicator to actually help me to do my job well. Because if I'm not getting all the tools that I need to actually process what I need to do to actually get the best candidate, then I can't make it happen. And I'm just trying to make things
happen. Aren't we all?
That's right.
Indeed. All right.
No, I agree. With the hiring managers, I'd say patience for sure, because sometimes, Silvio, you might be handling multiple requisitions at the same time, but the hiring managers always think that their position they want to fill, their vacancy is the most important right now. It needs to be filled tomorrow. It needs to be filled yesterday. So they're coming to you, saying, I need this job, I need it filled tomorrow, but you've probably already got, 10 to 20 other requisitions you're trying to fill. So patience, definitely communication also, because you need to weigh out which ones are urgent and maybe which ones aren't.
Thank you very much. I'd like also to say that I would call it one of the qualities of a good hiring manager, I would be holistic in nature. So a hiring manager should be able to now to link from the mission downwards to his or her own department, because now the lack of connectivity between the mission and the department, it means at the end of the day we are going to have a candidate who's not going to support the institute or the organization to perform better. So there should be that holistic nature, in a way that a manager will be able now to see how, if for instance I join this institution, how am I going now to support to reach the overall goals, because a department is not an island. A department is there to support the whole institution, to achieve the goal. Then remember that we work as a team, not as individuals. So how do we pull together? Yeah, so a hiring manager should have that holistic, capacity to understand things in a global way, then narrow them down. Yeah.
I'd like to comment on the communications aspect. Just another aspect of that would be the hiring manager during the interview process should be an active listener and not just ask questions from a script, but
Right.
be engaged, and as differences come up, shift gears and ask slightly different questions.
Yeah, I agree. I have seen arguments in my time between HR, the recruiters, and the hiring manager. And it's interesting how that works. Everybody wants certain things from certain people, and they're trying to tell each other what they want. And so communication is great. And I think the active listening, like you said, Michael, is also important. You can tell sometimes when people are just reading from a script, not really listening, active listening, not like really piggybacking off of an important topic or point that someone made. So I think that's very important. You all made really, really valid points in terms of the top qualities of a good hiring manager. So now that we established that you all are good hiring managers, right, let's go into the next question, okay? So what separates a good candidate from a great candidate? So when you see it, how do you know, like, this is a great candidate? When you see someone, how do you know they're good? How do you know that they're not good? Like, tell me about these lines of demarcation for you.
Thank you very much. I would like to start. I would like to say now what separates a good candidate from a great candidate. So a great candidate, first of all, we try to understand what is the issue. Why are they recruiting? Because you are coming there as a solution. Yeah. So what kind of solution do you bring in the institution? What kind of skills, be it technical skills, be it some soft skills, what is their culture? You need all to understand all those issues. What are the problems that they are facing currently? Then how can you support the institution to perform better? So a great candidate will first of all understand the institution in general, then try to understand their problems, then try to understand how he or she is going to support them, or how he or she is going to bring on board the required skills, and how he or she is going to support to push the institution from one level to the next level. So a great candidate, first of all, we have a big picture of the institution, then try to understand how he or she can fit. Thank you.
Very good, very good. Who's next?
I'll jump in.
Yeah,
I completely, totally agree. It was beautifully stated. When a candidate comes in, when they walk in, you don't just look at them and say, "Oh, that's my next hire." You need to talk with them, and what you really want to know is that they've researched the company. They've researched the company, the field, the industry, the position, and once they get in, I completely agree. They, for lack of better terms, need to ask questions, which goes along with what he was saying. Ask questions about, what is the need? What would you need from me? What are the big projects you're working on? What's the big picture, and see how they fit in there and how they can bring their skills, their talents, and their passion to move the company forward. You want to know that candidate isn't there just to fill a spot, make a paycheck. I hate to say it, we all need a paycheck, but what a great candidate is someone who's going to come in and just own the position and help your company just excel.
Yeah, I totally agree with Pamela saying. So my thing is, like, if I have two exceptional candidates, my thing is cultural fit.
Right.
I'm trying to put the best person out of those two people into my culture at my organization. If one person stands out more so in regards to culture, then I would definitely look at that person more than the other person. So it's all about research, seeing who gives the best quality answers, and again, who fits the culture. Because again, if they don't fit the culture, it's going to make it a little bit of a hostile environment. No one wants a hostile environment.
And isn't it terrible when you have two really great candidates and it's really hard to make your decision? It's the worst feeling. Really? I think people don't see the other side of things, and they just get a denial letter. So I'm curious, in those situations, do you ever reach out and tell the second person, like, hey, I want you to know it was a really tough decision, and ultimately we went with the other person? Silvio, have you ever done that? Because I've had it where I had two great candidates and it was so tough to make the decision.
I actually have done that. I reached out to them, let them know that, you were a great candidate, and if anything was to arrive in the future, we would definitely hold your resume and hopefully contact you, and hopefully you'll still be available. But if you're not available, I totally understand, because you were great at what you did,
Yeah.
So So I have no issues with actually reaching out to them, letting them know how good we were and that, you know, they were highly looked upon, but due to the fact that we can only select one, the coin went heads and tails.
Yeah,
That's true.
that's a
only
good
was that
point
easy.
because sometimes.
Just to add on.
Well, I think Michael was going to say something.
Michael,
I think that's a good point because sometimes your top candidate falls through. They may take themselves out of consideration or things happen. So you want to leave your number two with a good feeling, and they may actually be elevated quickly to number one. You never know. I agree with all the previous comments about researching the company, and I would add that I think an important factor too is keeping track of the little details like thanking the interviewers, the recruiters, the hiring manager, even the receptionist, post interview. It's the little thing that help to differentiate when everything else is equal. That's the sort of thing that the hiring manager and stakeholders remember.
Totally agree with that.
And Jean, did you say something? I know you had something else to add on to that as well.
Yeah, I had something to say. I would like to say, great candidates, we know how to give what is relevant, or whereby good candidates, we always try to impress, you know. Just remember that hiring managers, they don't have enough time, you know, to go through all the CVs. Imagine that you have 400 CVs. Then if, for instance, you give me like 12 pages as a CV, do you think I'm going to get time to go through that? So give me what you think is relevant to a specific role. Don't try to impress me, which is also good, but give me what is relevant because people don't have, you know, enough time to go through that. So be specific, be focused.
Yes.
I'm
I'm
sorry. Two things. Well, one, Jay Tyler, can you please let just for our viewers that may not know what a CV is, exactly what a CV is?
Yeah, definitely. So it depends. There's two things. I think one is location. I'm in Qatar, right? So in the Middle East, CV is more of the common term that people use. People don't use resume, where in the Western countries, you hear more about resumes, especially like the US, Canada, things like that. The second part is just the length, right? Curriculum vitae is really like the breath of life. So you can really go on and on in terms of your CV, in terms of all your experience without really truncating a lot of things. You know, so like, you know, someone who have a CV would be a medical professional, someone in academia, right? Those individuals have a CV, or if you're applying to jobs in the location, like a Middle East or something, you would probably prefer a CV. And then the second thing is a resume is more so like a snapshot or a truncated experience, like the most relevant details for that position. And so if you are going for an HR position, but you were a line cook 8 years ago, you're probably not going to put the line cook there. On the resume, you're going to put more of the HR related skills, maybe sales skills that could be transferable to HR, recruitment, talent acquisition. So it's a little bit more of a snapshot, and you're really curating an experience. You're curating an elevator pitch or marketing document for yourself. So I hope that helps people understand the difference between resume and CV.
Awesome. Definitely. And so I did wanted to jump on this question. I think for me as, being in the hiring position is that, you know, when I look at candidates, you know, we go through the whole process. So we do the assessments. We, utilize the ATS system. So it's several interviews, right? And not too. I'm sorry, about two or three interviews. And so for me, it's really bringing your real self, right? So, you know, most people when they come to the interviews, they bring that, that code switch, that interview self to the interview. But I want to know who you are before I hire you, right? Because I don't want to get that interview self, and then once I put you in that seat, you know, you're a whole different person, and now you're blowing this, team that I put together. You know, you're dismantling that because the person that we thought that we hired that was able to do the score and answer the questions correctly is not the same person that's coming to work on a day-to-day basis. So I think it's really important that you show people who you are up front, so that you can make sure that you're a good cultural fit before you get into a culture that's going to be very problematic for not only you but your employer as well.
But Duncan, how do you figure out how authentic that person is before they step in there? Because anybody can give you a representation of who they are. So do you figure things out before they come in to get an idea if this is who they really are, or you wait until you see them to get a feel and energy of who they really are?
So I think it's a little bit of both. So I think it's one important for a hiring manager to do their research. Larger corporations, it may be a little bit harder, but definitely doing, as we say, your Googles, right? Definitely looking through that individual's social media, and I see it from time and time again, right? Where people may send us a resume. First thing we do is say, okay, are they on social media? And we go through and say, okay, well, what's going on in your life? Well, listen, you were in a picture setting a building on fire. How is that going to work here at your employer? And so I think it's really matching up, what's going on in that individual's life to what you think they're going to bring to the work culture. And I'll leave that out there for a question if anybody wants to chime in on that.
I have something to say. I think it's interesting that we've had 2 or 3 people now bring up culture fit, or the right, what they call culture fit, because I've seen so many topics come up lately about how saying someone is or isn't the right fit is not a good term to use, or we shouldn't care if someone's the right fit as long as they can do the job. I don't know if you probably saw maybe about a month ago some things circulating around about people starting to say we should do like blind interviews where we don't see the person, so we don't know how they look or dress. And then people started arguing a step further, saying, well, then it would just be on the phone, and then we can make assumptions based on their voice. Well, if you're going to, no matter what, if someone has a bias, it's going to be present, right? So if you talk to me on the phone, I'd sound like a 12-year-old Valley girl. But if you meet me in person, if you see me walk in and I have some sort of presence and I answer your questions properly and I sit straight up across from you, make eye contact, and I'm a force to be reckoned with, and I can bring what, the best I can to your company, that's different than talking to me on the phone. And it doesn't bring the personality forward. So I don't know. I'm curious to see if you guys heard anything about doing blind interviews or blind and whatever they were calling them. You can't see them, you can't talk, you just online. They go based off of the application. And so I find it refreshing that there's still people willing to say, yeah, people need to be a good fit for a role, because you're not going to hire someone to be a customer service rep if they don't like talking to people, right? I mean, let's just be real. They have to have a personality of going the extra mile, talking to people. They can't be too shy. So that is what you would call a culture fit, if you agree.
Mm-hmm. Well, I could say I had my own experiences with speaking on the phone with someone and speaking to them in person. And on the phone, they were incredible. They were great.
Right.
They hit all the checklists. Next thing they came to an interview, they bombed, from their appearance to their hygiene, even to spelling.
Right.
You give them a paper and they don't even know how to spell properly. And it's just like, wow, who is this person? It's like the complete 180 from what I actually spoke to on the phone. So in regards to the blind interviewing, I can't really say I would like to do that.
Okay, so I'm not alone, because I kind of got, when I said I wouldn't agree with the blind interview, some people didn't agree with me at all. And it's not because I want to see what you look like or how old you are or what race you are. It's because I want to know what presence you have. Can you handle sitting at a meeting table if it requires interacting with other professionals? Are you a female coming in with a see-through shirt and you're going to be in front of people? Are you a person who, I've interviewed someone who, no joke, they turned around full circle in their chair while they were interviewing, and we looked at the back of their head because something wasn't right. Imagine if we didn't interview that person and they were very fidgety, they looked out the window and then turned around. So if we hadn't interviewed that person and it was just on the phone, what if they were expected to go work with children? At that, I don't know. So I think when I said I would be down for a blind interview, I kind of got ridiculed. So it's refreshing to see other people think, that presence does matter.
Now I'm here with you, Pamela. Just tell them.
Definitely.
Thanks. I'll tell them to call you.
All right.
Definitely. So, I just want to jump in on that, Jay Tyler, and I'll let I definitely want to hear Jean and Michael's perspective as well. But I think that pulling as many data points together as possible, is what you want to do. I would never do, a blind interview, and for me, if you can do the work, if you excel in doing the work, that makes you a good employee. But if you can do the work and you make my team better, you make this company better, that's what kind of makes you, a great employee. And so I kind of really, I want to look at all of those things, because we don't want to make that mistake. And I've seen it happen, right? I've seen people are really good at, they read the books, they get coached and they know how to answer the questions. Like some people are just great test takers and they know what to say, but once they get in there, it's a whole different story. But I definitely want to get, I guess let's go Jean's perspective first, and then Michael, if you want to jump in right after.
Yeah.
Well, I was only going to add it also would vary on the kind of position that you have. And so, for example, yes, as was mentioned, the customer service, sales sort of position, you want a vibrant, personality and a vibrant presence. But if you're interviewing for a pure lab technician or a researcher that's going to be stuck in a laboratory for 8 or 10 hours a day, you may not necessarily need that sort of a sales presence. So, and I mean, there are other professions too. So, all of this kind of you need to tailor somewhat for the type of position you're recruiting for.
I agree.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Jean?
Thank you very much. I would like to say I'm in agreement with Michael. In fact, I would like to say not one size fits all. So everything will depend on the positions. Definitely for the frontline, staff, you always want to see them, the kinds of, movement, gestures, for instance, I've talked about now customer service. These are very important people, or salespeople. These are very important people that we would like to see and how they behave, because it's very important. But we have other positions which are not on frontline, which might not need to, to see physically or even virtual like we are doing. Now, here what matters the most is the kind of questions you ask. Are the questions make you able to go further or to assess how suitable they are for the role? So I would like to say now, no one size fits all. We can't say this one is good, this one is bad. It will always depend on the positions. Thank you.
Yes. Speaking of this blind interview, I'll give you a short story. When I was working for one of the first companies out of college, I had to call a family about a particular situation. And so when I called this family, their 3-year-old son answered the phone. So I said, hello, can I speak to, fictional name, Tom Christensen? And the kid was like, yeah, you want to speak to my dad? I was like, yeah, can I speak to your dad? He's like, okay, hold on for 1 second. And so he had yelled to mom. I think mom was home. Dad wasn't home. He had yelled, hey, mom, there's a black guy on the phone. So at 3 years old, he knew I was black and I had my voice on, because I know I can sound a little bit like urban, right? But he had my voice on. I had my voice on. He still knew that I was a black man at 3 years old. And he wasn't black. That family definitely wasn't black. And so it's funny how we say blind interviews and how people can assume things or feel like they can assume things from that. So I thought that was pretty funny at that age. I thought he was a genius to know that I was black. And then the second thing is, and then the second thing is, Duncan, I want you to bring up Saving Miners Debt's response about the credit report. I want you to bring that up for a second. Now, hiring managers, because you all are very good hiring managers. Have you ever looked at someone's credit report to see if they're a good fit or to see if they're good for maybe a financial position or any position that has to do with money? Because I know there's companies who do that as well. But I don't know if you have been in the situation where you have done that before, looked at someone's credit report, because that's something that's happening in 2021. So just talk to me about that experience.
Okay, I'll take it. You're bringing the heat now, so that's a touchy subject. The only time I've done that is when it was a high level, like a finance director. So if we're talking about a customer service rep in a finance department, some may think that they would need that because they have access to financial information, credit card information, things like that. That's not something that I've been a part of. Is an hourly staff doing a credit check, a background of that nature. Only for high level, like I said, finance director, maybe a finance manager.
In my experience, I have never did any credit reports. I kind of feel like they're kind of imposing and impeding on someone's life, because you never know what situation got them to that credit report. I can't really judge them on how they'll effectively be in my organization due to the fact of them having poor or strong credit report. They can have the greatest credit report ever, then they might suck at your job.
I guess I should add the only time I've been involved in a credit check for a high level position is when it was public funds. That might change your mind. So it was a government agency, a public sector, and so it was public funds that the person, you know, would be dealing with. Other than that, you know, I'm with you. There's certain things that might be from a long time ago in someone's past, and it's kind of, I've always thought of background checks as a case by case basis, and which is really difficult. You know, I've worked with so many different industries and so many different applicants. Really, I've hired felons, so I'm not opposed to that. It's just, you know, the nature of the position was a high level decision maker dealing with $1 million, no, not just multi-million dollar budgets that were public funds. So there's a little bit, I guess, different circumstances and different criteria that need to be met.
Interesting. Okay.
I have not utilized credit reporting per se, but just in case people don't know, general background checks, which usually contract with services like EDP, for example, they're governed under the auspices of the Fair Credit Reporting Act. So it's meant to protect the applicant as well as, you know, company. So if sometimes you do find erroneous information there, and then the person has a right to challenge that, and so on and so forth. But I think a lot of people, candidates, have to realize that most companies will do some sort of a background check, and those are done professionally, usually by these outsourced companies.
Good, very good point, Michael. Very good point. All right. I'm going to go on to my next question if we're all with our comments, or finish with our comments. So this is for Pamela and everyone else as well, because she said I'm bringing the heat. So I'm going to bring some more heat to the panel as well. So can you all describe the relationship between the hiring manager, recruiters, and HR? What are some of the pros and cons of those relationships as it relates to a hiring manager? Is it all rosy on the back office?
No.
Is it some?
No.
Yeah.
No.
So yeah, and I know it's
rosy.
not. Yeah.
No.
So talk to us about that experience, because you know it's something that a lot of people don't see. So how's that experience for you all?
Well, sometimes it's like a tug of war, I should say, because sometimes they have high expectations, but you just don't have the quantity and the quality to give them what they want. And then you're getting deadlines and you're getting pushback and so forth. And it's making your life a little harder, because now it's like you don't want to settle, but it's like what they're trying to impose on you is like you have to kind of settle, but you're not trying to settle. But if you do settle, it's going to hurt the company. It's going to hurt your status as well. So it's like you don't know what to do. So it's like you might have to work more hours now because they're imposing on you and you need to get this done. So now you're just trying to appease everyone. But then again, what about your sanity? You know?
I think it kind of goes back to, you know, hiring managers just kind of learning more patience and learning that a recruiter isn't necessarily just working for you. They're working for multiple hiring managers. And every hiring manager, in their eyes, their vacancy is the most important to fill and the most urgent. So it's just a matter of, I think it was John that was saying, you know, look at the company in a holistic approach and see as a team, really let these 2 or 3 departments come together. We all have an urgent need, but really not that each in one department means more than another, but let's see which vacancy is most urgent to fill and which one can wait. But I think that in terms of the difference between HR, the recruiter, the hiring manager, depends on the size of the organization, because sometimes HR does the recruiting also. But for those who there's separate talent acquisition or recruiters, HR and hiring managers, they all need to communicate. They all need to be on the same page with deadlines, with criteria that needs to be met, with job descriptions and minimum qualifications. Because I don't know about you guys, but I've been in positions where the minimum qualifications will mysteriously change, you know, midway through the process. Oh no, we don't need 3 years, we only need 1. Well, yesterday you said 3 years, now you say 1. Well, you need this degree, you don't. So just communication up front, and, you know, patience and understanding as a whole, everybody's vacancy is probably pretty urgent.
Thank you very much. From my end, I'd like to emphasize what Pamela has just talked about. Most of the time, hiring managers, we never mind that you serve, a good number of hiring managers, and they want every time, to have their request to be number one. Sometimes you feel you are pushed against the wall, which is a bit sometimes hard to manage. Then I would like to say sometimes hiring managers tend, to miss out some basic things. For them, they want smart minds. They want people who can help them to achieve their goals. And then sometimes they never mind about the kind of pay scales that you have. Sometimes they miss out that one. They never care about the basic things. What they want smart minds who can help them to achieve their goals. So sometimes now you find such kind of you quarrel sometimes. There's a kind of resistance, and so on and so forth. So not always, but sometimes you find such kind of a fight.
I agree with the points that have been mentioned, and I just wanted to add that in some companies too, that the recruiters may be in-house, meaning they may also be employees of the same company, and some companies may outsource the function to search firms or headhunters, and then it's more important for the hiring manager and perhaps HR within the company to with that outside recruiter in that case and make sure that they're on the same page with respect to the must-have requirements and the nice-to-have requirements for the position, and that whatever is being the criteria is being handled compliant with legal requirements and the company's own policies too.
All right. And to this respect, does the hiring manager always have the final say? Does someone else have the final say? How does that work at the end when you actually land on a candidate?
Well, from my own experience, I think if you have members of the panel, they have to sit down. Then, most of the time we have what you call a debrief session, whereby we try to discuss on each candidate. These are the strengths, these are their weaknesses. So do we go for this one? Do we go for this one? But of course, most of the time they look at the final score, then they try to to see if who has a good number of strengths, who has a good number of weaknesses. Then they decide in the way. I would like to say now, a hiring manager will not decide alone. It's now a panel of more than one person. So they have to agree on whom should be offered the job.
Good point.
So let me ask this question, because as we're talking about the recruitment process and recruiters. So if a company is utilizing recruiters, obviously that's several layers kind of that you have to go through, before you get to the hiring process. But also, we've seen, and we talked about this on our Mailbox Monday, where some companies, small and large, they may hire individuals within their network versus an outside hire, right? So let's just say if I know Justin applies, I may hire Jay Tyler because I know him. So how, as an individual coming from the outside, can I get in front of the hiring manager, in front of the recruiter, to kind of beat someone that's in that person's network?
From my end, I would like to say it will always depend on the kind of policies that you have. For instance, we have what we call a conflict of interest. Whenever there's a conflict of interest, you should have to declare that, because you would not want someone to influence, the recruitment process. Because at the end of the day, what we'll consider is the performance of the candidates, and not that I know you or I don't know you. So it will always depend on the practices in the company. Yeah.
Right.
No, I totally agree. I think it depends on the industry also, because if there's a set criteria of minimum qualifications that are needed, you need to have met those qualifications regardless, depending on the position. If you might need certain certifications, state certifications in order to do the job. So you can't really let someone cut in front of the line that doesn't have those, so first and foremost, they need to meet minimum qualifications. But, in terms of how do you present yourself and kind of get a leg up when in today's day and age, sometimes it seems like it depends on who you know to get a job. it's kind of unfortunate because everything is so digital now. It's not like, when I started working a long time ago, when you actually physically would go get out of your car and walk into a place and say, are you hiring? And you see the person, you shake their hand, you fill out a paper application. We don't do that anymore. So there is no more shaking hands, first impression, communication at all. It's just, I don't know about you guys, but for me, I've screened through like 2,000 applications for one position with one vacancy before. Wow. And, it took me a while to realize I need to have cutoffs. I need to have, a date frame, or 200 applications will cut it off, whatever it may be. But it's hard to get your foot in the door when there's a lot of competition and everything's digital. So you're just literally a piece of paper with a name and an application and a resume. So how do you move past that? That's a good question. But a company does need to have good conflict of interest policies in place. The nepotism policies, the conflict of interest policies need to be set in stone. Everyone needs to follow them. You shouldn't be supervising someone who is your family member. You shouldn't be supervising someone who's your neighbor, ideally. Some companies might let that kind of thing slide, but that's a very good question. How do you get ahead when everything's digital?
And so to jump on the back of that. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Michael.
Coming from the outside. I was going to say the candidate coming from the outside may in fact have their own network they can utilize too. I would definitely go into LinkedIn and see if you're linked somehow to somebody within a company. It may not be a direct first level connection, but maybe a second level connection. And then you have to do some of your own homework, in that respect. But as you work your way in, a lot of companies have employee referral processes. And in that case, sometimes it's beneficial to those internal employees to refer an eventual successful hire. So there's some skin in the game for them. So that's one way that an outsider can try to get roughly the same edge as an internal candidate, again, assuming qualifications are equal.
Yeah. Definitely. So I definitely appreciate that. So some of the panel just said kind of, it sparked me, and it's real, right? So she said she went through 2,000 applications, which is insane. I don't know how you did that. After 100, I'm probably like, I'm out. Just take this person right here off of the pile. But it also shows the reality, especially for individuals that are applying for jobs of one clicks on Indeed, the Zip Recruiters, or those things that, hiring managers may get 500, 200, 500, 1,000, 2,000 applicants, right? And so what are some of the tips and tricks that you all, and definitely everybody, please chime in, that you would suggest, if you have a large pool of applicants, how do I get my resume to the top? Should I be the first to apply? Should I, be the last person there so it's fresh on your mind? Should I call? How do do I send you a message on LinkedIn? Do I come and knock on your door, and say I'm here without being annoying, right? To the hiring manager, without turning the hiring manager off. So what are some of the tips and tricks that you may suggest, or have you seen in your career that people have used that you would leave for our viewers?
Well, number one thing I can say is following up. A lot of people follow up with me. I'm like, oh yeah, thanks for reaching back out to me. Like, there's actually an open role right now, and that actually really, really is helpful when people follow up with me. Because again, I meet so many people, I talk to so many people, I'm not gonna remember everyone. I can't remember what I did yesterday, actually. So when someone actually follows up with me, it's actually really, really important, because that really is helpful for me to actually remember them. And you never know, that position that they were looking for in the past might have just opened right now. By them following up, they're right on the top of the list.
Right, definitely.
But also in regards to that as well, what I like to make sure is that they actually fit the criteria of what the hiring managers look for as well. Mm-hmm. So regardless of the following up with me, if they don't fit the criteria, I'm sorry, it's just not right. Next level.
What about anybody else? Nobody else has any tips or tricks?
I feel like I'm going to fail a test if I say the wrong thing.
Oh, just throw it out there.
Yeah.
It's just it's it's like an age-old question. How do you notice somebody when it's digital? And if you have, let's say, even 200 applications or 200 resumes, how do you notice one resume out of the bunch, right? That's the real question. Is it pink paper? Is it perfume sprayed on paper? No, there's really no rhyme or reason. I mean, I have to agree that if someone is calling and emailing constantly, it's going to put a bad taste in your mouth. I hate to say it. It's going to make you remember their name, but not necessarily in a positive manner. But if someone calls, maybe they apply, they haven't heard anything, and maybe they wait even just a week goes by, they call or they shoot an email and just say, hey, wanted to make sure you received my application. Wanted to make sure you received my resume, just like a confirmation of receipt. What's your name? I'll hear what your name is. And you're, like he said, you're going to be fresh on my mind. So when I do see your application or your resume, not that I'm not paying attention to it in the first place, but maybe I'll remember it and I'll pay special attention to it, if that makes sense. But I hate to say it, and it might sound cliche, or maybe you don't believe me, but when I'm screening through applications and resumes, I actually read through all of them. The first thing I do, and for people watching who are applying for a lot of jobs, the first thing that I do is I'll go to make sure that the minimum qualifications are met first and foremost. I hate to say it, but your objective statement can be amazing, and I may really think that you're a great person with a good head on your shoulders, and you bring great positive energy to our company. But if those minimum qualifications aren't there, only for positions where it really requires it. Now, again, if it's like you need a state license or certification to operate a certain equipment, that's OSHA safety thing. I can't look away from the fact you don't have that certification, because that's by law, you're required to have it. So no matter how much I like you, if you don't have that cert, I can't hire you, right? But for the ones that there's a little wiggle room, okay, 1 to 3 years of experience, but you only have one, maybe I might be more inclined to go with the 1 year of experience over the 3, because you called, I talked to you. So I'd say calling once a week later, just to follow up is a good thing. But in terms of what does the resume look like, as long as it's not 4 pages long or one sentence, somewhere in the middle, there's always arguments over how long should a resume be, what should it look like. I always say 2 pages. It depends on depends on your position and how many positions you've had, or what you can cut out. But some people do, if it's an executive position, they might do just a 1-pager, right? But usually 2 pages is fine. But I don't really have the right answer for how to get ahead when it's all online, unfortunately. First and foremost is going to be minimum qualifications, if that is absolutely required and we can't get around it. If we can get around it, just a clean resume that looks good, everything is accurately filled out on your application, because sometimes people don't look at resumes until they've already looked at the application. They won't even open your supplemental attachment until they've screened the application. I know resumes are a really big deal. It's a hot topic nowadays, and there's actually a lot of money to be made in resume writing for certain people. But I always tell people, you need to have a great resume, but if it requires an application, when you're working with a recruiter, boom, your resume is the number one. That's your face. That is your business card. That's your calling card. Resume, if you're working with a headhunter or a recruiter. If you're not, and you're on your own and you're applying online, and it's an ATS system that requires everything to be filled out and says specifically, do not attach a resume, we will, go over you, don't put C resume, then you need to fill out that entire application completely and accurately. Because if there's people like me who have 1,000 applications to screen through, you're not even going to open that supplemental attachment to view the resume until we've deemed the application complete and you've met minimum. Then I'm going to look at the resume. And if the resume is great also, boom, you're going to go on to the next level. So resume is important, but so is the filled out application. I just went on a whole different direction.
Right. Definitely. And for hiring managers out there, please do not have me fill out a 60-minute application and then ask me for my resume. I will not work for your company.
Yes,
I'll walk away. I'll get up and leave. Okay. I'm not a good culture fit for that. Okay. I'm sorry, Michael, please.
There's another, I was going to say, there's another layer to consider that some companies solve to being resumes even before it gets to a human recruiter. So from that perspective, you may have heard the term keyword. And basically to cut this long story short, what you can do to help your case is to make sure your resume and/or cover letter has at least some of the words and terminology that's referenced in the job posting. So that's look up and see that it's not exclude you for not having that. And the same token, even something as basic as Microsoft Word or Excel,
right.
Even though most folks have that, but I would explicitly include that just so it's not excluded during the keyword search by this software. So, and then getting back to how to make your resume stand out, some of the old-fashioned ways that might work or it could not hurt would be to fax in your resume. Some companies still have fax numbers, and an incoming fax would still physically have to be delivered to somebody, and also snail too. Even if I've seen some folks even hand deliver resumes and cover letters to a front desk or something, and then somebody's going to have to deliver it somewhere. So those are some other tools you might consider.
All right. I have one question for everyone though. Do you care for the cover letter and thank you letter?
Oh, that's a that's a good question though. That's a good question.
Well, if you ask me,
that's a good question.
Mm-hmm. I don't think I'm ready to just get rid of the resume. If you ask me, I think they have they provide another layer of unconscious bias. I think we really need to move more towards a digital format, a digital resume. And somebody did ask, Deanna Dack did ask about what about video resumes, but I think it's only I will only want the cover letter. Let's just say if you're going to be our communications person. Maybe about that, but then if that's the case, I could ask you, for a portfolio of your work outside of that. So I don't really think it's necessary. I think it's another layer, and also what we've seen in the past too with the job engine is when employers ask for a cover letter or resume, especially for entry level positions, you'll just see some people put their resume twice. Right, just to get past those steps, and it's like, well, you're not going to get hired because we asked you for a cover letter, you didn't want to write a paragraph, and so and where that person may have actually been able to perform that job because it was entry level. But yeah, I think that we have to. There are so many other things out there, that can help. With the talent pool as well as to narrow down great candidates. Great culture fit. That I think some of these old tools that we're using are definitely antiquated, and I think they're going to change very, very rapidly.
Well, let me jump in because you're my brother from another mother, right?
Well, Pamela had came at you first. She came. She said the thing about people making resumes. She came at you first.
I knew that was gonna be a topic.
Well, hold on. Yeah, of course. But hold on. So I have to respectfully disagree with your assessment, Duncan. And it's why I say this. For me, when I'm looking at hiring someone, right? Like I want to see how well they write and present themselves, right? So the cover letter gives me another glimpse into how they actually write, how they can articulate a response, how they can defend why they're the best candidate, their punctuation, their grammar. As a resume writer, it matters to me, right? Because, I do write resumes, so it matters to me how people present themselves. And also, too, in the same breath, like, someone sending a thank you letter, it will make me think more about, okay, that person sent me something versus someone who did not.
Right.
But also, too, it's a difference, right? But also, too, someone who wore a bow tie, I can remember them versus someone who did not wear a bow tie, right? So, or had some nice glasses on in an interview. I remember like little funny things like that. So I guess it does depend on your preference.
So people need to wear a polka dot bow tie if they want you to hire them. Is that what we're hearing?
I will remember you. I will remember you. That is a fact, right? So, you're right. I've done it. You know what I'm saying? Handkerchief, bow tie, things like that.
That's a good trick. It's a good.
Yeah, it is.
But Jay Tyler, let me say this, and then John, I want you to jump in.
I want to hit John
after that. Definitely. But once again, so when we do our assessments, right? So a part of that assessment is a writing assessment. So you're writing on the spot, right? Where a cover letter is, I don't know if you wrote it, I don't know who wrote it, right? And so with the assessment, you're gonna now I get to kind of see the true you and not definitely not the side. And don't get me wrong, as a cover letter, I like it, right? Anything more things I have, the more data I can put together on the person, I will definitely take it, right? Over, not having these materials and trying to guess if this person is actual good fit. And
that's a good point though, because I could have wrote their cover letter, So yeah,
right.
And we know it would be great if you wrote it.
Phenomenal.
Oh, thank you so much, Pamela. Thank you so much. Right. So got you. And a good point, Dunk. Good point.
Oh yeah.
Jean, in this situation, when you're looking at hiring someone, does a cover letter matter to you? Why or why not?
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yes, it might matter, but not so much like a resume or a CV. Because a cover letter, it's a way you market yourself. But it doesn't really mean that you can do that. So to me, what comes first should be a resume or a CV, because in your resume you should be able to show me your main achievements throughout your career. Then your resume, you should be able to show me that you understand what the role entails. Like Michael has just said, you should be able to reflect those jargons or technical terms, because the way I write my CV will depend on the kind of position I'm applying for, but again, on the type of industry. For instance, assume that I want to be a HR business partner, let's say in an insurance company. These people should know that I know something around reinsurance, claims, client retention, So I will always want to make sure I reflect, technical terms, from the job description to my CV to show that I understand really what I'm applying for. Otherwise, I'd like to say, yes, a cover letter is very important, but it doesn't matter much as a resume or a CV, because a cover letter, it's a way to express yourself, but it doesn't really show that, you have that. So for me, what comes first should be a resume.
Good. And before I go into the next question, Deanna mentioned something very important. Duncan, if you could put that back up on the screen, because this is 2021. We are very digital in this world. And so what I've seen when I'm looking at resumes and screening resumes, what gets me to think someone is different is the fact that they have a video link. It gives me a little 5-minute introduction of who they are. So I actually get to see the candidate. So sometimes on LinkedIn, someone may not have a video on their featured section, but they may give me a link to their website where they have a video of themselves talking or things like that. So what about these video interviews or video resumes that you may get, and people are discussing who they are and why they're qualified for your company? Does that matter to you? Is that important to you as a hiring manager?
Well, I can say yes. It should be another source of information, because as we are just talking, right now. At least you know how I communicate. You know how I am organized in terms of when I'm giving my opinion. So I'd like to say yes. A video to me also would be a very important source for information.
Sylvia, you can go ahead.
Yeah, somebody else want to jump in?
Yeah, I was gonna say definitely, because I get to feel their personality, I get to hear their verbiage, and I get to feel how they are and how they move and how they communicate and so forth. So I feel that the video resumes are actually good.
So, and I'll jump in on video resumes as well. So I do like video resumes, one, because you can actually pre-script the actual interview. So you can have that technology can ask those questions, and you can just actually watch those answers on your leisure time. But also too, if you look at the technology that's coming out, which is actually pretty scary, with video resumes, they're using facial recognition technology as well as background recognition technologies and algorithm to scan your facial recognition. So while you're answering the question, are you showing, are you smiling? Are you lying? Are you looking to the left? So they're actually collecting all that data to kind of look at your emotional intelligence, as well as other factors to kind of say, well, the way the person answered that question, we're not really sure if they were truthful in that question, so forth and so forth. But also it's also scanning your background to kind of see what's going on in your house, right? So hopefully, if I was doing veneer and it's scanning me, it might be scanning the books that I had. It may say, well, Duncan has, cat in the hat, so he may be, a borderline not a good reader or something of that nature in the background. So I think that once again, for me, any data that we can collect is essential to hiring a great employee. But also, we have to look at these things. It's getting technology can be a little scary as well.
Definitely.
So
definitely.
Yeah. And actually, I'm sorry and I want Michael to jump in on that too, because he's been in the business a little bit for a long time as well, and I know things are changing, so I kind of just want to get his thoughts on that as well. On the video resume piece.
With respect to the video resumes, I think, I think for a creative type positions, it'd definitely be very helpful, perhaps in the arts, marketing, sales, but for other positions, it might actually be a distraction. Let me qualify that. Actually, it may be in a technical position, in that candidate can show that they're at least technically proficient to be able to put together a video resume.
That's actually a very good point.
Yeah.
Very good point.
So I have a question as well, because we're talking about a lot of external candidates for a job and for a vacancy. But how do you know as a hiring manager if you have a great internal candidate for the position? Is it a hiring manager that says to HR, or does HR identify them? Is it common knowledge? Like, how do you go about that process to fill a vacancy if you have an internal candidate?
Well, the way I
go, I'd like to say,
all right. So the way I like to say it, I see it as is, if they don't reach out to me, I just won't even know their internal candidate. Because there's so many employees in the company, right? And everyone could be better than one person. But if I don't hear from their superiors, like their managers, then I'm not going to really know if they really are that great, because we can have great conversation. Yes, boom, we have a like water cooler talk and so forth, and then I might think you're a great person, but then again, you might not be that great of a person in regards to your work ethic and so forth. So actually speaking to that person's manager or the supervisor and getting to know who they are and so forth. Then after that, going through the interview process with them and find out why they think they should be in that role and why they think that they should actually move up to the next level, and what qualities and traits that they have provided and showed throughout their tenure at the company to show that they actually can make it to the next position. Those are some things I like to look at.
And John, you were going to jump in?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Duncan. I would like to say, as I have always been saying, we always have now kinds of career management frameworks. So we have the way we manage promotions internally. Then, of course, they would say for you to move from one level to the next, you should have this minimum of qualifications. But this is not enough. You should also have proved that you are able in terms of, we have different performance reviews. So you have a recommendation from your supervisor, but again, at the end of the day, we have a committee, to assess that, then endorse that. So we have frameworks in place, but again, we have committees, to assess that, to avoid favoritism, whereby some people, can be moved from one level to another one simply because they know X, Y, Z manager.
I agree. That's why performance appraisals are so important to keep up on. I mean, it's kind of difficult when an employee wants to go for, let's say, promotion, and they haven't had a performance appraisal in the last 2 or 3 years because their supervisor is falling behind and no one's holding the supervisor accountable. What do you have to go based off of to see their history for the last 2 or 3 years and what kind of employee they are, what kind of scores they've received? That's why performance appraisals are important tools to use in any case. If there's a discipline coming up, if there's a promotion coming up, That's why it's so important for the management team to keep up on things like this. You know, I hate to put it on the management team because it's not all the management team. It's the employee needs to prove themselves. But this is just kind of goes to show you the importance of having performance appraisals on file. So if an employee comes and applies for a promotion or some sort of internal move, you can refer back. And then, like he was saying, some sort of policy in place. You know, how are we going to handle this if it comes up? Especially if you have internal and external applicants. You know, does one get precedence over the other? You know, you need to have a policy in place stating how you're going to handle if you have internal and external, and, you know, not favoritism. It's one thing for a hiring manager to come to you and say, so-and-so is a great employee, but if that's their favorite employee and there's two other employees that also want to go for the promotion, how do you know, as a HR person, how do you know who's the best employee? So the supervisor's saying, this is my guy, I want to promote him, but there's two other guys who want to promote. Go back to the performance appraisals and see really what's the history say. And then if it comes down to it, skills testing.
Right. Skills testing, yes. I think the skills testing is definitely something that companies should do, because that's one of the questions I actually have for today. Like, how do you know someone can actually do the job? Someone could talk to you and tell you that they could do it, but how do you like actually?
We don't just believe them at the interview and hire them.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Right, but yeah. So I've seen a lot of people fake their way into a job and make it, and it's flop. And then they look at the recruiter like, "Why'd you hire this person?" It's like the recruiter's fault.
But they pressured Silvio to hire him because they wanted someone yesterday. Now they're going to blame him, right?
That's how it goes. That's how it
does, though. They gotta find somebody to blame, and
all the things are on you.
Yep, definitely.
Oh yeah.
I just wanted to add, in addition to the internal performance reviews, you have other data. Other data is potentially available in this process where HR can help, and that would be if companies have succession plans in place, not only for upper management but for lower levels, and hopefully you would have at least some potential internal candidates on that list. And secondly, some companies also have identified high potential candidates. So if you have openings, you really should go into that high potential pool, or else why have one in the first place? So that coupled with internal bidding, which a lot of companies still have, certainly a lot of the onus is on the employee to self-nominate. But there might be some processes where management can nominate, and then again, as was mentioned previously, you've got other data like manager referrals and information, performance reviews, and so forth. And it makes sense to have the internal candidate be given high consideration since they know the company, know the culture, and know the job. And then the external candidate really would have to show they have an edge over that to, be considered in that final pool too.
Definitely.
All right. So we have a couple more questions before we close out. All right. So I have two major questions, and then we'll begin to close out the show. So when you have a top candidate that you have identified as a hiring manager, but they want more salary than you have stated, how do you go about that process to get that candidate what they want, or do you walk away? Like, what are the factors in that to get that top candidate if they balk at your salary that you offered?
Well, I would like to say most of the time, the way now we design our pay scales, we should have minimum, pay. We should have medium. We should have also maximum. So a candidate should be able to fall within, that scale, from minimum to maximum. It happens that when you don't have maybe, let's say, more skills as we might want, you might start from that minimum part of it. But when, for instance, we have something that we think we need in our institution, of course, we tend now to move even beyond the medium, then we approach the maximum part. That's how sometimes we are able now to be able to have those top candidates onboarded, even when we think they are, above what we consider as minimum, simply because we we want them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. Just, ahead of time, go into the phone call of the offer with your minimum and maximum in mind, regardless of what the pay scale is. What are you going to be willing to go up to for this candidate if they start negotiating? Have that set in your mind. And, for those of you watching who are applying for jobs, this is, I know, a hot topic also is salary negotiation, and it does come up. And I would like to tell people, I know hiring managers and HR, you're going to get mad at me for saying this, but I'm going to say it. If a candidate feels they're worth more, they should ask. And there's nothing wrong with asking. What's the worst that can happen? They're not going to, hopefully they're not going to say, no, never mind, we don't want you if you ask. And, that's not to say ask for $10 more an hour. Be reasonable in your request. And for candidates, you should be prepared ahead of time, as well as the person who's calling to make the offer. Be prepared for potential negotiation and know how much you're going to go up to. Remind them, and if you're in HR, remind them of the potential for salary increases in the future, but be transparent with them on when will that happen. Is it a month from now or a year from now? Because that might make up their mind. If you're not willing to budge as much as they want you to, they want to know that salary increase is going to come sooner than later, right? And then remind them of any kind of benefits that you think are extraordinary at your company. If you have a lot of paid time off, if you have really great healthcare that's going to save them money, remind them of all of the perks as well. And so it just kind of goes. It's a fine dance that we dance with the candidates. The salary negotiation usually ends up well. And I think sometimes a candidate wants to just ask.
There's also an important data point that the company can gather up front too, and that is, although recently legislation throughout the country has prohibited asking about salary history for the employee, but nothing is prohibiting asking about salary expectation from the candidate. So I have always asked that question: what are your salary expectations? So you have data point at the point of screening or interview, and then the topic probably will come up during the interview, and then if you get to the offer stage, then it should not be a total surprise. So candidate comes back with a number that's higher than the expectation that was communicated earlier. I would ask, why? Why are you? What's your rationale? And if it's over your budget or they can't find a valid rationale, then you need to be prepared to walk away, or rescind the offer as the employer. At least that's my 2 cents worth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is very smart to go over those salary schedules during the interview, so everybody is on the same page.
It is.
And I would say to employers as well is, just put the salary out up front, right? Let them know what the range is. Nothing.
Please, employers.
Nothing is worse than going through the interview process, getting to the offer stage, and having that employer say the salary is 20,000. Even if you're hourly, $10 less than your expectations, and you having to say, I'm just going to go ahead and head out. So put it up front. Be transparent, right? You want your job description to kind of be like a peacock. You want to show all your feathers, bells, and whistles, your pretty colors to show that individual, why you are a great organization to work for. This is what the salary is. We're competitive, next to any other company. So, don't be afraid to do that. I think for me, one thing I cannot stand is the employers that don't, list their actual salary requirements.
Yeah. We at Mercer County Works, so on our job site, we always talk to companies about putting their salary out there. We don't want to post jobs that don't have the salary. Yep. We want people to know exactly what they can look for, exactly what they're going to get, so they have a negotiating point. Everyone's, kind of aligned to what it may be. So if you don't want to apply, don't apply. If you do want to apply, you go to negotiation. You know what I mean? So we definitely want to make sure we do that. Let's close this out with this question here. Try to make HR funny and, something that's not stuffy, right? So tell me about your wildest candidate story as a hiring manager. Something that super surprised you, maybe something someone wore, what they said.
Michael's already laughing.
I gotta hear this because I know we all have stories. So I want to hear from you. What's the wildest candidate story that you have as a hiring manager?
Who wants to go first?
Does Michael have something?
Yeah, Michael might have something there.
Yeah, I do actually. It was when I'm on an expat, actually a special project. I was with the old AT&T in China, and they stuck me in front of some candidates, and they were a total mismatch to what the hiring managers were looking for, and although they thought I could speak Chinese and I could not, so there was a language difficult. It's a total chaotic situation, and it was more the fault of the local HR person, and which is why I was sent over actually, and that's why I learned pretty quickly. So a little embarrassing, but a learning experience for everybody.
Right, definitely.
Wow.
I guess that's a good question to ask, right? What other languages do you speak instead of assuming? Definitely. Wow.
I think so many I can't even think of one. Myself as a candidate, a very long time ago, back when we answered ads in newspapers. Do you remember newspapers? And you circled them and you called the phone number, jobs available in the newspaper. I'm older than you guys. You don't remember that? Come on. You look through the newspaper, you see what job you want, you circle it, and you call. So I answered an ad, and it was like an administrative type. And when I got to the interview and got to the end and they said they wanted to hire me, they said, oh, by the way, do you mind working in a prison? And I ended up taking the job, but that would have been nice to know ahead of time, I think, for a lot of people. Right. For me as a hiring representative, a hiring manager, an HR person, I have seen so many things that would just, like I said, turning all the way around in your chair while they're being interviewed, looking out, turning sideways and looking out the window. And we were still talking, and then they started answering the question while they were sideways looking out the window. I've had, unfortunately, to stop interviews because people, two people were so nervous they almost did start to pass out. So myself and my co-panelists had to become, like EMTs for a second. I've had people come in with, their shirts unbuttoned and their undergarments showing. And I think not on accident, just maybe they thought, I don't know. I've seen so many things. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, from my end, I'd like to say the craziest candidate that I had. Some years back, I was recruiting, for our next position. But of course, the time we're recruiting, we have had a very great candidate. Technically, the person was good from work sample up to the final interviews. Even from the background and written checks, everything was okay until we offered the job. Then what happened next? The candidate didn't have, a will to join the institution. Rather, he wanted to use the offer to get promoted, to his current, institution. So now the candidate communicated that he was not joining 1 week before getting onboarded. So to me, it was really very crazy because from the start, the person knew what he was doing.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
Definitely.
Wow.
These are wild stories for sure. Definitely. I will give you one story myself. All right. Duncan, you might know what I'm going to say.
No, please. And I'll go after you.
Details. Yeah, I'll leave out the details. But the wildest one I had was not about the candidate itself, but just the actual experience. And so at a company that I worked for, the director, he said, I want you to interview someone. I said, okay, yeah, I'll interview him, no problem. Why not? So I didn't even look at the resume. I just go in, I have my own questions, and I'll look at it because it was just like right at the spur of the moment. I'm like, okay, I guess I'll handle this. And so when I go into the room, I see a gentleman sitting down. I'm like, he kind of looks familiar, but I don't really know who he is. And then I walked and say, hello, I'm Justin. And guess what? It was Duncan.
Yeah, I remember that. Yes. Yes.
And I said, what? And I had to contain myself because I didn't want people to know like I knew him.
Right.
Because we knew each other for a long time, right? And so
yeah.
I'm like, oh, hey, Mr. Harrison, how are you doing? Have a seat, And we just had a regular interview. And then so the director was like, well, how did you think of this candidate? I was very excited, for him when he came in. I was like, listen, if you don't hire him, I'm walking out the door. You know what I mean? So that's just something by chance that I interviewed one of my childhood friends. This is ironic. I don't know how that worked, but it did, and he got the job.
Definitely, it was fate. And
don't ever say I didn't hire you. Don't ever say I didn't hire
you. And many years later, we're still together, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah, definitely. So one of my not one of my craziest HR stories, but I think a crazy HR story was one that I experienced. Definitely not going to name the employer, but we were in transition for hiring, and so we went with a local temp agency that we've had to utilize before. So they sent that individual over to come work for us, and probably about maybe about 3 or 4 weeks in, we received a phone call from that individual's sister, and that individual's sister said, the person that you think is working for you is not actually that person. And we said, well, how do you know that? And they said, because I'm that person.
Oh.
and she's using my social security number. And so immediately we had to go in, stop that person from everything they were doing, ask that person to, provide us with their, information, everything that the staffing agency was supposed to do. And so the person said, oh yeah, don't worry, I have all that. It's in my car. Let me just run and go get it. We said, okay, sure. You go, don't touch anything else. You go get the information and come back. And so she left. We saw her car drive down the street, and she never came back after that. And so we immediately, called that staffing agency and really took it from there. So that was probably one of the craziest things, or not crazy, but one of the most unique things I've actually experienced in HR.
Well, if we're talking about just crazy stuff in HR, that's for a whole nother show. I think we all have those stories.
Yeah.
Come on.
We a whole nother show for sure.
Yeah,
definitely.
All right. So we are at the finish line, everyone, for the panelists and also for the viewers. We are at this finish line, and we have a couple of questions that we always ask the candidates at this point in juncture of the show. So for the panelists here, if someone just checked into the live right now and didn't see anything in the show, what's the one takeaway or the biggest takeaway that you can give to that person just viewing in right now?
Depends. Is it an applicant or is it a hiring manager? But I'd say for applicants, just keep at it. Make sure that you're filling out your applications completely. Make sure you have a really great resume. Basic things like, I know that these two gentlemen who are our hosts can help you out with your resumes, but basic things like spelling, grammar, the little things that are very easy, very quick fixes. I have my own, but I'm going to give them all the credit, and I'm going to let our two hosts help you out afterwards with the resumes. Ask them, they're great, but just have a really great resume, fill out your application completely, submit it, and just don't give up. Follow up if you don't hear anything, don't follow up too much. And, just be prepared, research the company ahead of time before you go in for an interview, and show that you're interested in the company. Don't show up and go, well, where am I? What do you guys do? Research the company ahead of time, go in prepared. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, and hiring managers, if you're a hiring manager watching this, please have patience with our recruiters.
Facts.
Thank you very much. From my end, I would say, don't impress, give what is relevant. Because none wants to be impressed. They want to hear from you what is relevant, depending on the position you're applying for. Secondly, be authentic, objective, and honest. Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, very Definitely. Nice. Very nice.
I think, Pam said it all. And if I could sum up and repeat also, I think be prepared and be persistent. It's a number game. There's although there's a lot of open, there's an awful lot of candidates too, and you want to try to get yourself up into that next stage of whatever process you're in to to be screened out of that general pile, and then to be interviewed, and hopefully to be the one to get the offer at the end. But to get there is a lot of work. One of my old career coaches said it's like a funnel approach. You need 100 interviews to get that one offer, or it's a 10-to-1, something like that. But anyway, it's a numbers game. So be persistent.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely numbers game.
I agree with that. Sure. Yes, totally.
Yes. So last question. And this is the most important question because our panelists gave us their valuable time today to drop this knowledge on us and upon us, right? So I'm going to start with Michael first, and then we can go to Jean and then Pamela. So Michael, where can we find you on social media or your website? Where can we find you so the listeners here can check you out?
Well, I do have a LinkedIn profile. I'm on Facebook too, but I hardly ever check that, and it's just personal. But my LinkedIn profile is www.linkedin.com/in/my full name, no spaces, Michael Shao. Yeah, that's right. What's on the screen. So
already ahead of you, Mike.
Oh yeah, we're ready. Yep. All right, thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. So Jean, same thing. Where can we find you on social media or your website?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm an active user of LinkedIn. I just put there Mirukiro Jean Dodier. You will see me. I also use Twitter plus Facebook.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, good. Thank you so much. Thank you. And then last but not least, Pamela, where can we find you on social media or your website?
I don't have a lot of social media, but I do have a website, and it's ellsworthr.com. And I have, there you go. Yeah. I do have LinkedIn, so you can follow me on LinkedIn, but my website is ellsworthr.com. Appreciate that, guys.
Yes, not a problem. We're going to shout you out. That's what we do. So not a problem. For me, before we go, thank you so much, panelists. I really do appreciate it. We have all contacted you at some various points, and you gave us an hour and a half of your time. You could have been doing anything else, right? But you gave us your time, your effort, your talent. We really appreciate that. Duncan, I'll let you take it away. What's your last parting shots for the day?
Definitely want to thank our viewers out there for tuning in with us tonight for another episode of the Rise and Grind Show. Please make sure you subscribe. You hit that notification bell so when we come back, not next Thursday, but the Thursday after, with another episode of the Rise and Grind Show, you can tune in. So we just want to say thank you once again. Peace, love, blessings, and we're out.
Thank you.
Peace.
Great, thanks.
I'm here to tell you about Mercer County Works. This premier job site solves a problem I think most of us have. The job market is competitive. There are many jobs everywhere, but real job opportunities seem few and far. This is Mercer County Works. It's a job site exclusively designed for you. You can apply for jobs like any other job site. Yet the difference between Mercer County Works and other job sites is Mercer County Works contains jobs for Mercer County and its surrounding areas. Job seekers like you can also benefit from resume and career assistance to rise above the competition and land the interviews that you deserve. Whether you are looking for six-figure jobs, remote positions, internships, or freelancing roles, you can apply confidently for career opportunities in the area. How does it work? It's simple. Visit www.mercercountyworks.com. Search for jobs in the area. Apply for career opportunities that interest you. Not really satisfied with your resume? Then click on the Upgrade Your Resume button on the homepage to get career advice and have a professional resume writer review your resume for free before applying for jobs. On this job site, all career opportunities, supporting job seekers, recruiters, and employers with their diverse job needs. Exclusively designed for you. Real jobs, real resumes, real results.